Welcome back to Serious Talk, the Military Minute, the show built for service members and military spouses navigating the road to civilian life and meaningful careers. I'm your host, Greg Banks, and I'm grateful you're spending a few minutes with me today. Have you ever felt like you're doing everything right, but still don't know what direction you're supposed to go next? In this episode, you'll hear a powerful, honest conversation about military transition and what happens when the uniform comes off, the mission changes, and you're suddenly expected to figure everything out. Today, I'm joined by Jon Macaskill, a retired Navy SEAL commander and leadership mentor, who shares the real story behind his transition, what he didn't see coming, what helped most, and how he rebuilt purpose through mindfulness and intentional planning. Thanks for coming along. Let's get right into it. All right. Very special day here today. I am extremely privileged and honored to have Jon Macaskill on Serious Talk Military Minute. Jon, thank you for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Hey, Greg, thanks for having me, man. I'm honored to be here. And this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. So I'm happy to share my story and hope to learn from you as well as we get into
Fantastic.
this.
I look at my background. I went and bought a flag because I didn't serve.
I see it.
Like, man, your background is so much cooler than mine. But yeah, we could probably take 30 minutes to do an intro on you here, Jon. Like just from the things, not just all the things you've done. And if you haven't Googled Jon, do that. There's a lot of great content out there. But this is just a list of the pies you currently have your fingers in that I could extract from your LinkedIn profile. You're an executive advisor at the Inspired Culture Advising and Coaching. You're the chief sales officer of the Warehouse Network. You're business advisor at Higher Prana Virtual Reality. So owner and keynote speaker at Mindfulness, Wellness, and Leadership Mentor. I know we're going to get into a good bit of that today. Co-founder, co-host, and producer of Men Talking Mindfulness podcast. Adjunct faculty at UVA Darden Executive Education. Content creator, keynote speaker at Calm, advisor at the Outlet Project. Are you tired of hearing what you're doing? Mindfulness coach at Movement RX, partner at My Steady Mind. You're a member of Operation Red Wing. This is what led to the movie Lone Survivor, and the movie is probably the furthest thing from reality. I continually hear from veterans when things do get turned into movies, and for those of us who get to service, like freaking A, but for you guys, like, yeah, that's only part of it. So anyway, you're a retired Navy SEAL commander, 24 years of service. That's a lot of labels, a lot of titles. And I asked you this before coming on, but of all those names and all those titles, somebody says, Jon, I want to know one thing that represents you, your highest priority in your life today. What title is that?
Husband and dad. Yeah. I mean, I know all that is, my professional resume, if you will, or at least organizations and businesses that I'm a part of. But my number one priority is my family. And, if all of that fell away tomorrow, my family would still be here. So, yeah.
There you go. This seems to be pouring into my life because I keep hearing statements like that from all over. Maybe I need to hear it, and that's why it's coming at me. But yeah, you only get one chance to do it right by your kids, especially. Our wives are resilient. And I was telling somebody about I spent over 20 years on the road traveling 30 weeks a year. Oof. And it was some of that during the critical times when my kids were born and really young. And I said, my wife was a single mom for the first, probably 10 years of their lives. And somebody said, that's a strong woman. I said, you bet, man. And I don't deserve her, but I'm grateful for her. And coming off the road was one of the greatest things that ever happened to my family. And I'm grateful for it. So yeah, man, what a great way to kind of wrap that up. So all the places we'll go today, you and I were talking about the power of choice and what influence that has over your life. And you may feel like a passion in your own life sometimes of the things you get involved with and all the demands that come, but those still come down to choices. You don't have to pay some of those bills. You can get rid of some of that stuff. And that's a whole nother episode, another topic for another day. Yeah. But give me a little bit of background. I know your Navy career is well documented, but just give me a little synopsis of your time in the Navy and why you went in,
man.
if you remember.
Oh man. Okay. So that's a whole different question, but yeah. So a big piece of why I went in actually started when I was very young. I moved to the States from South Africa to Ruston, Louisiana, as we were talking about before the show started, and grew up in Ruston. And honestly, I feel that I was very privileged. I lived the proverbial American dream, right? I came over from South Africa, went through school, and really didn't ever want for anything. My parents, we were not rich by any stretch of the imagination, but what we were privileged to be a part of here in the States, I felt very proud of the United States. This is back in 1995, 1996. I enlisted in 96 in the Navy because I truly wanted to give back. I wanted to serve the country who, even to that point, had given me so much. So went into the Navy as an enlisted guy. I tried to get into the Naval Academy out of high school. I got denied and went into the enlisted ranks, got picked up from the enlisted ranks to go into Naval ROTC at Tulane, but then simultaneously also got an appointment to the Naval Academy from the enlisted ranks. So went into the academy and graduated in 2001. George Bush was our commencement speaker. 3 or 4 months later, we were attacked. And I was at Navy SEAL training. I got selected from my class to be one of the 16 guys who went out to Navy SEAL training for that particular graduating class. And when we were out there on September 11th, Tuesday morning, out on the West Coast, we saw what had happened to the towers and the Pentagon and the other aircraft that crashed. And my desire to serve was even further solidified. Yeah, I served from 1996 until 2020, if you count my Naval Academy time. And in that time, I served from 2003 until 2020 in the SEAL teams or connected to special operations in some capacity. I don't count my training, prior to putting on my Navy SEAL Trident. So anyhow, during that time, deployed to Afghanistan, Iraq, off the coast of Somalia, all the kind of the standard usual suspects. And then, as you mentioned in the beginning, I was deployed to Afghanistan during Operation Red Wings. I was not on that operation, which actually, ironically almost, is what caused me the most grief because I wasn't on that operation. I was out there. I helped to plan it. I tried to push back against it. I ended up being in the operations center during that mission. I knew our guys were on the ground in a firefight, and I was behind a computer and a radio, and that's not where I wanted to be. But after that, so 2005, continued in the SEAL teams until 2020 in the SEAL teams or Naval Special Warfare, the different elements within Naval Special Warfare. And then, I retired in August of 2020, right at the height of COVID. And here we are almost 6 years later already. It seems like the blink of an eye.
Strange. Hearing that, I was actually in an airplane when the 9/11 thing happened. And
oh, wow.
I had a certain set of emotions. My wife didn't even know what state I was in. I was traveling a lot back then and was flying to Ohio for the day, was up and back, didn't have a suitcase, didn't have a rental car. I was meeting a coworker.
Yeah.
And ironically, they had a bomb threat at the Cleveland airport when we landed. So they threw us out of the airport. If we'd had luggage, I don't know if I could have got it, but took like 2 hours to get through to my wife. It was like, here's my credit card. Find me a car. I don't care what it costs. I know I'm driving home. I'm not flying. And I didn't have a hotel. Didn't have anything. I mean, sure could have stayed with my coworker. But it just, again, every year 9/11 comes around and I get on Discovery Channel and I watch all the day one stuff and ground zero stuff. And I don't want to forget it.
Yeah, same.
I can't fathom, like what, as you were describing, I was thinking about the scene in American Sniper where they're, Chris Kyle's enlisted and he sees that thing like, freak yeah. I know what I may not know who I was this morning, but I know what I'm going to go do. And I can't fathom how different seeing that must have been when you were already in uniform. Like that had to be
it was wild.
A real defining moment.
It was. I remember like it was yesterday, exactly where I was, just like those of us who were alive back then and old enough to remember. I'm sure all of us remember exactly where we were. But when it hit, we were in the chow hall where we were eating, at least when it was on the news that we could see. Yeah. And then we ran back to the training compound. And at this point, like all of us are like, what the hell's going to happen? Are we even going to keep training? Are they going to take all the SEALs? What's going to happen? And one of our instructors had the wherewithal to notice that there was a lot of questions. There were a lot of questions in our eyes, in our minds. And he jumps up on this podium in front of all the classes there. And he says, hey boys, and I'm going to paraphrase this, but this is how I remember it. Hey boys, people are comparing this to Pearl Harbor. And I can tell you right now that Pearl Harbor doesn't have shit on what just happened. Yeah. We're going to be at war for the next 2 decades. And this was in 2001. And he said 2 decades. And I actually ran into that instructor probably 2 or 3 years ago. I was like, hey man, do you remember this? He's like, yes, I remember that like it was yesterday. And I had no idea how accurate I was going to be. Yeah. And man, he nailed it. 2 decades. Now, back then we're young SEAL candidates, not SEALs yet, we're still at training. And what had happened, it clearly hurt our hearts, hurt our souls, and hurt our country. And we felt, okay, we're ready to go. I won't get into politics, but there's definitely a part of me now that looks back. I'm like, did we do the right thing? Did we waste money, time, and most importantly, blood
Lives.
for
Yeah.
where we are? So anyhow, but back then we were full of piss and vinegar and wanted to go, quote unquote, shoot bad guys in the face.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyhow, that's yeah.
And so I think starting with just kind of defining what some of those moments were, and we all have our view looking back. Who knows if we all know the truth or not, but it is what it is. And, so you've been on that journey. I really want to focus on as you get towards 2020, when you make the decision to get out, what led you to that? And when you made that decision, was it a long off ramp? Did you kind of say, I think a year from now I'm going to do it? But what was some of that departure activities for you?
All right. So this could get pretty long, but I'll keep it as short as I can. So in 2018, I had gotten selected to command an element out in Salt Lake City, which I know it's kind of funny. No Navy really in Salt Lake City, but there is a small reserve unit out there. And when I went out there to take command of that, a person very close to me reached out to me and she told me that she had been beaten by her then husband. And I know you're wondering where I'm going with this, but just bear with me. It's part of the story. And so I reached out to this guy. I tried to call him. He saw it was me, didn't answer the phone. So I texted him. I was like, hey, if you lay another hand on this person, I'm going to come and pay you a visit. I will admit I used some colorful language, and he took those texts. So this was not the smartest thing I've ever done. He took those texts and filed electronic harassment charges against me. And the Navy ended up removing my command qualification for loss of confidence. And I had given everything to the Navy up until that point. Been married before, gotten divorced, made sacrifices. I had done well and given everything. And then the big Navy, not necessarily the SEAL teams, but the big Navy kind of just let me go, man, because they felt that there was going to be a big article in the front Navy Times that says, Navy SEAL threatens this guy, and they didn't want that. So they basically fired me. So this is 2018, and they fired me from that role, but they didn't fire me from the Navy. So I went back to Virginia and took a role in the Navy Reserves. And at that point, I was very jaded. Yeah. So I decided at that point, I was going to get out of the Navy. And I had people say, hey, man, don't tell the Navy that you're going to retire. Don't tell them that, because then they're going to really blast you on your fitness reports, your evals, all this. I was like, I really don't care. I'm upset with the Navy. I just don't feel like I can serve. Again, not the most mature moves I've ever made, but it's just where I was. And so 2018, this was like May 2018. And one of my old bosses who had gotten out, he had retired. He was a Naval Academy grad, Navy captain. He had gone through Army Special Forces, Army Ranger School, SEAL Team 6 guy. He had done everything. So he had this amazing pedigree. And when he got out, I thought that the world was going to be his oyster, and it was not, because he hadn't prepared properly for his transition. So this is 2018. He sits me down and he tells me basically what I just told you, that, hey, I thought that I had all the time in the world. And he said, you've got 2 years before you get out in 2020. You need to start figuring out what it is you want to do now. So coming back to your question, it was a relatively long off ramp compared to what a lot of people use. And he said, start having cups of coffee with people, start talking to them about the different industries they're in, find out what makes them tick. And so at the time, I thought that I was going to get out and get into commercial real estate. And so I spoke to some people in that space, and I realized, this is not what I want to do. And it's not a bad space at all. It's just not for me. Sure. And I looked at private equity and venture capital and financial planner and all these different roles, all great jobs, but again, not something that I wanted to do. All the while, I had, coming back to Operation Red Wings, I had struggled with survivor's guilt and post-traumatic stress because of that operation, not because of what I had done on the battlefield. And I had gotten introduced to mindfulness and meditation. And long story, very short, is I attribute mindfulness and meditation to saving my life. I felt that, hey, maybe I could create some type of job around mindfulness and meditation. And I remember once I decided that, I still had one more conversation with a commercial real estate guy. He's like, so, which company is it that you want to work for? I was like, I've decided I'm not going to go into commercial real estate. This is what I'm going to do. And he laughed at me. He was like, John, there is no money to be made in the mindfulness space. And he's not wrong. There's not a whole lot, but but it's not about the money. It's about the potential impact that I can make on people's lives, on their lives, and then the ripple effect that comes from that. So I feel it's a way for me to continue to serve. And I know we're going to go down some paths about, when you do get out, the purpose and the mission and the identity piece. And I've got a whole another story for all that. So I'll stop there.
No, that's great, man. I actually just released an episode today with Kate Stoker over at Maravis, and she and I, we meandered a lot through how that organization came to be and whatnot. And but one of the things we talked about is what gets her up every day is helping people reach their potential, to take that passion and pour it into really getting where you need to be, right? And she loves helping people that way. And in that conversation, I was like, man, there's very few things in this world more scary or sad. I don't know which is more the appropriate adjective there, but than somebody without purpose. And so what I hear you say was you had one perspective on the world, and it was to go grab it by the horns. And by the time you actually got to the off ramp and made a turn, you're like, that's not my purpose, right? Again, those aren't bad things, but you through your own personal growth said, this is what I need to go do. It's not just helping me, but I need to be meaningful. I can only imagine the brothers and sisters you served with, the conversation y'all have had, and those are meant for behind closed doors. But man, there's in all the conversations I've had with people doing this podcast, one of the first things I just struggled with was, how can I, a civilian that didn't serve, do anything meaningful for the veteran community? Like, well, veterans are trying to find the way in the civilian world, which I know and they don't. So my experience can bring some value there, but there are certainly things that we just can't begin to touch, and only people that put on that uniform can, man. So before we go any further, John, man, God bless you.
Thank you, brother.
I hear so many stories about people that immigrate to the country and find real purpose. They appreciate the freedom. Yeah. And man, that could be a whole nother episode on what that looks like today. But
yes, indeed.
But if we would wake up and realize the blessings we have to be in the borders of this country, what that affords us and what we can choose to do with that freedom, man, you wrapped all that up in a bow, man. So I appreciate you taking time to kind of go down that. I've watched a lot of podcasts with you in it, and most of that I had not heard. So, and I'll say here for those that maybe haven't heard of you or haven't seen that content, John's journey to try and work through some of those things, discovering meditation and mindfulness, even the resistance you had to it when it was mentioned to you, and then you opening your eyes to it.
That's right.
There's a lot of really good stuff out there. So if you've got some time, go look into some of that. I'll talk to John about any specific episodes that he wants to highlight. We can put those in the show notes to make sure we promote that. Recently, I was watching a podcast with you in it, and you talked about the lie of self-sufficiency.
Yeah.
And this is a topic we go a lot of ways with, but I would imagine if you look back on what you thought getting out was going to look like, part of the reason you had your boss, who probably had great confidence, was that lie of self-sufficiency. There's nothing I've tried I haven't done. What makes me think I can't continue to do that? And it's not that you can't, but there's a path you've got to go down. You don't just show up at a door and say, I'm God, let me in. So, as you think about your transition journey, in light of that statement, what were some things that, obviously you heeded his advice. You spent those next 2 years working through some things, looking into programs, studying things. What were some moments for you in that particular season that stand out in your memory as like, man, this really made a difference for me? Like, what we try to do here is not put down things that don't work, because there's 10 million resources for veterans. What we want to do is spotlight those that people have found and have firsthand knowledge that these things work and make a difference for me.
Sure. Yeah. So that boss of mine, he's now the CEO of the Honor Foundation. And the Honor Foundation is a transition program specifically for those who are within the special operations community, not necessarily special operators, but those who are within the special operations community. So that those who serve within the SEAL teams as SEALs, as support, those who serve within special forces, Marine Raiders, you name it, within special operations, there's a community out there that helps with the military transition, and the Honor Foundation is one of the best ones. But at the time, when he sat me down, he was not the Honor Foundation CEO. And he, after retirement, started going through these different programs. He went through one called the Commit Foundation, phenomenal organization. Can't recommend it highly enough. Same with the Honor Foundation. I can't recommend it highly enough. So I ended up following his advice. He said, hey, these are some of the organizations that are out there that, like you said, there's tons of them out there, but these are some of the ones that I know have worked. So he told me about the Commit Foundation. He told me about the Honor Foundation, which at the point he was not the CEO of. So he didn't have a dog in the fight to promote it. Yeah. He was just telling me, hey, this is a good thing.
Wasn't self-serving, right?
Yeah, it wasn't self-serving. Okay. So he told me about American Corporate Partners, ACP, which is out there. Most of these are free services for veterans or soon to be transitioning service members that can not just tell you what to wear to an interview, because all the different services have their transition assistance program or whatever it's called within the Navy. It's called TAP. And, they'll tell you what to wear to an interview, how to kind of write your resume in civilian speak, tell you a couple of these things that are, I don't know, they're helpful, but there's a lot more to transition than just, hey, you need to wear a suit to an interview instead of your flip-flops. So, anyway, these programs, the American Corporate Partners partners you up with an individual who is in corporate America, and they become a mentor of yours for a year. You have phone calls with them. They help out a lot. The Commit Foundation helps you to get connected with other programs that are out there. The Commit Foundation has coaches that help you kind of go through the transition part. Same with the Honor Foundation. They both do something similar. And the Honor Foundation has a part where it's called Find Your Why, like finding out what your purpose is, not just in uniform, but in general, who you are and what your why is. Same thing with Commit Foundation. They have Pursue Your Purpose. Anyway, those are some of them. And then there's a couple programs that I know of that are offered at some really high end or high caliber universities. One of them is called Tuck Next Step. Tuck Next Step is it's at Dartmouth's Business School, Tuck, and it's basically a 10-day crash course on business for transitioning service members or recently transitioned service members and soon to be transitioning elite athletes, which there's actually a lot of commonalities between those two groups. These elite athletes have been focusing their entire lives, basically, since they were much younger than we were as service members, to what it was they were doing. And now they're transitioning out. So anyway, there's a commonality, a common sense of awe and respect between the two communities. But they give you a crash course on business. And then another one is called Ignite. And that's out at Stanford. And that is primarily for those who want to go in the entrepreneurial route. Now, I never did Ignite, but I've heard phenomenal things about it for those who went the entrepreneurial route. Yeah, but I did do Tuck Next Step and actually got connected to Tuck Next Step through the Commit Foundation. So those are some of the transition programs, tools, assets that are out there that I took advantage of and helped me tremendously for my transition and my career since.
And do you recall, as you were going through those, like I got to imagine, one thing I hear every veteran say that goes through these, there's no silver bullet, right? No one program does everything. That's why you mentioned going through several. And two, as you go through one, that probably peels a layer of the onion off. And you go, okay, I'm starting to sense where I want to go. And they go, all right, now this is the right thing. At what point, when you decided you were going to go into mindfulness, was that figured out as you're going through all these? Or was all this more of getting my brain out of military mode into civilian mode? And with that came the clarity of making that decision.
Yeah. So that coffee that I had with my old boss, it was like 2 years before I got out. And after I went home that evening, or when I went home that evening, I sat down and wrote out the next 24 months of my life, what I call the plan of action and
milestones.
Love
to see that. That should be a book.
Oh yeah, I'll send you a picture of it. It's hilarious because it's just got a bunch of scratches through it because every single time I talk to somebody, something else changed. But anyhow, that 24 months, I was like, okay, when I retire in August of 2020, I want to be in the commercial real estate space. And then a backward plan from that. I said, okay, what do I need? What courses can I get? What credentials can I get prior to getting out? And who do I need to talk to? Like I wrote a list of commercial real estate people that I could speak to in person or on the phone. And as I spoke to them, I was like, okay, you know what? This is not what I want to do. So X all of this. Okay, what are some other things that I could do and backward plan from those? And eventually I was like, okay, I went through with the Commit Foundation. I went through this book called Designing Your Life. And the Designing Your Life book then has an accompanying workbook. And it has you do some things in this workbook that really opened my eyes. One of them is for 3 weeks, you carry this book around with you, and everything that you do, you write down, okay, I went to a meeting on this and it gave me energy. I put together a PowerPoint. It sucked energy away from me. These different things that what gives you energy. Talking to people, which ironically, talking to people one-on-one gives me energy. Going to a networking event, I absolutely despise. I'm a big time introvert, which is ironic, but anyhow, so I did this for 3 weeks. And then at the end of that, you sit down and you're like, okay, what gives you energy? And you take that and draw a circle on a single piece of paper, and you write down 2 or 3 words that kind of define what those things are. And then from there, you make it a mind map. You draw lines out to other circles. Okay, like for me, it was leadership and people. And so the circle around was that, talking to people, mentoring people, learning from people, and these different things. And then from those, it just expands. And then you have this outer ring of circles that essentially you form into a paragraph about what it is you want to do. And it was so eye-opening. It was like I was getting hit over the head with a baseball bat. Like, I need to be in a space where I am teaching and mentoring and working with people so that they can become better versions of themselves, so that they can be better husbands, spouses, parents, colleagues, coworkers, whatever, you name it. And that's when I was like, oh, you know what I do regularly that helps me? I meditate. Boom. Let's do this.
Light switch moment.
Light switch moment. But once that light switch went on, there were still lots of doors in that room. I was like, okay, which door do I go through?
Right.
Which kind of lends to what you read at the very beginning of the show. I have trouble holding down a job because I don't know which one I want to do.
Right.
So many
I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up, but I want to retire.
Yeah. I was talking to my wife last night. She was like, I actually don't know how to tell people what it is you do because I'm not entirely sure I know what it is you would do. I said,
that makes 2 of us, right? Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Man, that's let's take a temporary sidebar. Journaling is something that I have a love-hate relationship with.
Oh yeah.
I've been on computers since I was 11, so I got a 11-year-old handwriting. I can't read my own writing, so I mostly do stuff on computers. But I don't know if this is where you were going this, or the nature behind the designing your life, if this is what they intended. What I've learned in seasons where I journal, and I've only done this probably 3 years of my life, and I've done it as I've gotten older. Man, I wish I'd done this young. Maybe I could have avoided some mistakes if I'd have started this younger.
Oh yeah.
But I will say this: A, journal. B, do it at any level you want to do it. C, and I think C is the most important, is go back and read it.
That's
There is
right.
something, and I would assume this is probably what they were trying to do, is now you're looking at something in your own handwriting telling you what you've been asking yourself and couldn't find the answer, right? But there is something about just writing stuff down in your handwriting, type it if you want, and then go back and read that. It provides you insight. And maybe it wasn't you didn't know those things, but like now I can go back and look at something I wrote 10 years ago and go, man, what was going on back then? Oh, my best friend's wife had a miscarriage, or he started a business and it took off. Whatever. Like, there's something about the seasons and learning and observing and paying attention to those things. Most of us, like, you get out of college, you get married, you buy a house, you have a kid, you get on a train, and like 30 years go by before you look up, right? You're just trying to survive life. And I just find it interesting that is a lot of people, I hear it common, that when you decide to get out of the military, almost everybody has that same thought you had. I'll just go do this, right?
Yeah.
I've done stuff, right? And a lot of disappointments come very quickly. One, nobody, I'm not gonna say they don't care, but there's civilian world doesn't know how to look at what you've done and why they see you're an awesome person. Be great to have him here. I have no idea what we'd have him do, but it'd be awesome to have him here. Like, if he just sat in the room and talked, maybe that would help us. But so people often find like that gap. I'm talking to Hire Heroes USA.
Oh yeah.
A company that helps you work on your resume. Candorful, I think, does a lot of mock interviews. They help you practice going through things because you don't want to, God knows you don't want to go out there and find that perfect job. And it's the first interview you've done since you enlisted. Those are different interviews. So there's a lot of things you want to practice in that. But to wake up and say, well, I'm X rank and that should equal VP or a regional manager or whatever. Almost always that first civilian job is going to feel like a demotion. And it doesn't mean that it is. It just doesn't match up to the things that you've had in your mind of what the off-ramp of military look like. So I know you've been through, man, so many things. Again, a quote from that one of the podcasts I listened to, you was talking about you confuse capability with capacity. like an inability to say no. And the reward for doing good work is you get more work. And
Yep.
a victim of your own success. Yeah, that should be a t-shirt. There's so many lessons in that. And I would trying to think how to even wrap up the things that you talk about here, that there's a lot of eye-opening lessons and being self-aware. I think that journaling thing is a real key that if you do any one of or any combination of these programs, and even if the program doesn't tell you to do it, do it. There's something about writing it down, and maybe you have a confidant, somebody, God bless that you had somebody like your friend who on their own said, I'm going to reach out and help Jon here because I don't want to see somebody else wake up where I am. Not everybody has that, but everybody has somebody. You've locked arms with brothers. One of the things I just don't understand, nothing about the military is individual. Everything is about team. But so many veterans come home, almost never live near the people they served with. That translates to loneliness. That translates to isolation. And probably just because men are dumb and think we can do whatever it is we put our mind to, we go, I can do this. And then a week goes by and a month goes by and a year goes by and 6 years go by. And you're not where, in your mind, wherever you thought you were going to get, you're not there. And for many veterans, I think in particular men, that just equals failure in their mind. Why the thought of raising your hand and engaging your team? I don't care if they're on the other side of the country. They got a freaking phone. This is a neat world we live in. We can talk, But what are some of your thoughts as you were going through that? You figured out all that. So this was a long ramp to decide what you didn't want to do. That's what you learned through a lot of these programs.
Yes, exactly.
But eventually the light opened up to what you do want to do. And now you realize I've spent all this time and nothing prepared me for that, but I know that's what I want. So that's a whole other chapter that you've got to go through to get to that place. But what were some memories of those, I don't know, first few months or even years of I know that's what I want, but I don't know where to go with it. I don't know who to talk to. It's not a help course that you can go take per se, right? It's not the easiest thing to get into, I wouldn't think. So what were some of those momentous things you remember doing or discovering or people you met during that season?
Well, I think one of the first big aha moments that I had after leaving the military, aside from, again, the things that we talk about within the transition space all the time is loss of purpose, loss of mission, loss of identity. You hang that uniform up and you've been wearing a rank and a specific label and you've got your ribbons. And if you walk into a room and you've got all that on, people instantly, you've got street cred, they know who you are, what you've done. Then you walk into a room with a t-shirt on and nobody knows who you are, what you've done, any of that. That's one thing. And you go through any transition program, they're going to talk about that. What I did not see coming was the sense of betrayal. And what I mean by that is I felt deeply that I was leaving my brothers and sisters behind. They were out there fighting the good fight. And here I was retiring and going and getting my Starbucks coffee with, skim milk and everything else. And whereas they're still down there fighting in Afghanistan. I felt that sense of betrayal. And then the other side of that same coin, I felt betrayed by them. And what I mean by that is I had joined this team and this team was on this speeding bullet train, moving toward a target, a mission. The whole time we were on this train, we were continually moving at bullet train speed. And when I decided to get off, I went to the door. There was no train station. I just jumped off and rolled around for a little bit, turned around, looked back, and that train was gone. Because that team still had a mission. They had to continue doing what they're doing. They didn't have time to stop and ask me how I'm doing regularly. Now, since I've gotten out, we do have, like you mentioned, we do have technology. Every once in a while, we'll have a Zoom call with my first platoon. We've got this text thread that's continually going back and forth, giving one another grief about X, Y, or Z. Like back in our platoons, we had these beer logs. Like if you screwed up anything, you have to buy a case of beer. And you write it down in the beer log, and at the end of the year or end of month, whatever, like, okay, who owes, who hasn't paid? A guy sent a picture of the beer log a couple months ago. He's like, hey, Mac, because that's what I went by in the teams. He's like, hey, Mac, you still owe, and the juice has been running, so you owe about 125 cases of beer.
Interest is real.
Yeah, interest is real. So anyway, where was I going? So yeah, that sense of betrayal kind of became numb over time. I realized, hey, everybody gets to a point where they have to leave and the mission continues and the team goes on without you. But eventually those who you were tight with will check in on you and you can check in on them. you're also going to be a resource for them when it comes time for them to jump off of that train. They can
Yeah.
reach out to you and ask you the questions that you're, like you're asking me. Hey, what programs are good? What's worth the time and money, the effort, the energy? And I can share that with them. So that's a way for me to kind of overcome that sense of betrayal, is to give back
Yeah.
to them as they take that step.
That's a great takeaway. Man, in my mind, does movies, right? So I'm thinking back to clips of different things that I've seen, but you did, for the most part, you didn't go in together, right? You're
Yeah,
talking about people who served multiple decades. You're not likely going to get out together. The inertia of your lives are different.
sure.
That's something I strongly, strongly believe in. And I was watching a podcast yesterday about Carl Edwards, who was a NASCAR racer, and the absolute best year of his career, he said, "I quit and walked away." Everybody said he went Amish,
Wow.
like he disappeared from the scene, and he just came to the realization, I'm pouring everything I've got into this, and this is why I asked you about what title you prefer to kind of encapsulate your life. He said, "If everything I put my energy into does nothing for the things that are most important to me."
Mm,
Right? It's a really, purpose is great and work is good for our hands. It's great to get out and
sure.
do these things, but that the work in and of itself is not your purpose, right? You're on a
Yeah,
road to that purpose, and it's a part of that journey. And so for all these people you serve with, their own and off ramps are different places. But if you think your purpose is that, and I think this is true for working people, whatever else, men in particular, if your identity is your job, who are you when you no longer do that job? I don't care what
yeah,
your job is. That's a
yeah.
fact. And and
Right.
and most of us, as you get towards that season of life, and it's honestly, it's why I'm sitting where I'm sitting today, is I spent 25 years with the company, poured everything I had into it. It was a global job. I worked 3 a.m., all kinds of weird calls and whatever, and I had no life. And I said, I want to go do something where I have a life. And I want to go volunteer for
Yeah.
Wounded Warrior. That was my dream,
Oh,
to go
nice.
find a job where I have a life and then go volunteer. And then I landed this company I'm at, and I discovered hiring our heroes. 80% of our employees came out of that program,
Nice.
and I got to mentor through that. And I was like, oh crap, man, this can be my day job. This is freaking awesome, you know? And so what I've started finding in my career is there's purpose, there's threads of my purpose within it, i.e. what we're doing right here. So
Yeah.
it's beginning to give me a post-working purpose that I can start doing now. And I think so many people just wake up one day, whether you're leaving the military or your job or whatever, and just go, huh, now what?
Yeah.
And it's a
Oh, yeah.
lost feeling. It's a terribly, you describing that picture of, I'm on this bullet train and I jump out and the train's gone and I'm like floating in the clouds here, like, what the frick just happened? And it's too
Yeah.
late, right? It's too late. And I'm sure everybody can relate to the emotions of your friend sending you that text and the righteous anger that welled up. There's fewer things that set me off quicker than you threaten my family.
Yeah,
Jail doesn't
exactly.
scare me. There's
Nope.
nothing I wouldn't do for those that I love. And I think most of us would
Yeah, and
say
I
the
think most
same.
red-blooded Americans
Yeah.
would say the same. I mean,
Yeah.
most people in general, American or not, are gonna say the
Yeah.
same. Like, they're
Yeah.
gonna stand up for those they love,
For
no
sure.
matter what it costs.
For sure. Well, I know no two of these journeys look the same. No two people have been seen and done the same things in the military, and nor are they going to do the same things after. So you really can't make a formula or a map that every single person can follow. But you
Yeah.
can have a recipe of things that you do, right? A little of this and a little of that kind of a thing. I threw this question at you a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you put any thought into the answer to it, but you know, if you sit right here now and you look back to 2018, because that's really when your
Yeah.
off ramp began, and you wrote a 10-chapter book, or you made a top 10 list of the things that led you from there to here.
Mm.
And if you need to iterate through this and take your time a little bit, go ahead. But and they don't have to be chronological for that matter.
Yeah.
But what are some rocks that are in that you could kind of lay your hands on and go, these were major things that, even if they won't be the same order for everybody, but these are really important things that you need to evaluate to get to that place. Because part of that, somewhere in there, shouldn't be just to find a job. It should be to find a
Right. Oh,
purpose and a
yeah.
career that fulfills that. If you go do anything that's not fulfilling, you're going to be disappointed. And that's
For
the lead
sure. I mean,
regret.
you
So
look at I don't know what the stats are, but I know they're out there that, when veterans get out, typically they don't last more than 18 months in the first job that they take, because that a lot of them they're doing just that. They're taking the
yeah,
first job that jumps out at them. So I would say, before you even join the military, ask yourself why you're joining. I understand that there are people who are joining for money reasons. I totally understand that. I appreciate it. Same thing for some people want money to go to college. But why do you want that money? Why do you want that money to go to college? What is it that's driving you to do that? Are you joining to serve your country? Like, that's what I truly, that's why I joined. Well, why do I want to serve my country? Because I want to serve my people, my fellow human beings. I think identifying your purpose early on before you let the military tell you what your purpose is,
Yeah.
that I think
Because they
is
will.
critical. They will.
Yeah.
They will. I mean, what their purpose is going to be your purpose for a while.
Right.
But ultimately, what's your big proverbial why? Why are you doing X, Y, or Z? And then understand that if you join and you're going to get out in 4 years, or you join and you're going to get out in 40 years, you're going to get out. I mean, you know, ideally you have an opportunity to get out. You know, certainly
Right.
we've lost brothers and sisters who didn't
Right.
get to do that. But yeah, for the most part, the large majority of us are going to get out at some point. What does that look like? Start thinking about that now. You don't have to get into the nitty gritty details of it, but start thinking about it now, because it's not something that you can just think about 6 months before you get out. It's something that you have
Yeah.
to put some time and effort and energy into to get it right. And to get it right is even a strong term, because I don't think any of us get it right. To make it to make it better, to make it smoother, more painless, because there's still going to be pain, but more
Mhm.
painless. Yeah, put some thought into it, put some heart, put some time into it. Don't just accept the first thing that comes your way. Don't settle. Really figure out what it is that
Mhm.
you want to do and why you want to do it. But yeah, start early, go back. Like, even if you're at the 18, 25, 36 year point and you're like, well, why did I originally join the military? Well, yeah, well, I joined to make money for college. Okay, well, why did I want to go to college? Well, I wanted to go to college to become a doctor. I wanted to go to college to become a teacher. I wanted to go to
Mhm.
college to do this. Remember who you were when you joined. Don't forget that. And I think
Yeah.
that's a huge piece of the recipe.
Yeah, I've heard that from a couple of people, and maybe this will be the last question because you just opened up 25 more on ramps in my mind. But, it's 17 or 18, which is the age you legally got to be at before you can go in. 17 with a parent signature. You know so little, right? You know so little about, even if you've dreamed of being a doctor, architect, or professional football player, whatever, right? Through a 17-year-old, 18-year-old set of eyes, the lens you look through looks one way. Well, let's just
Yeah.
say, for the sake of argument, you actually know what you want to do, and that hasn't changed. A doctor's a great example. Like, I still want to go become a doctor. Can you do that after 20 years? Absolutely. If that's the case, if you're going in for a good reason, you want to be a doctor, that's 20 years out there. How does that change those 20 years? Do
Mm.
you not just get up, grab your rifle and go, but you actually start studying people? Not that you got a lot of spare time on your hands, but
Well,
rather
there's definitely time.
but
There's going to be times where you
sure,
have nothing going on.
sure. And so one of the things that was presented to me in one of the earlier interviews that I did was, having some good sense about picking an MOS that actually is something you like, something you enjoy, and that is useful. Like, it's actually a job that exists and will exist when you get out, right? But what he had told me was, in the military, you're going to get reviews. Whether you
Yeah,
like them or not, you're going to get them. And they won't necessarily be in terminology that you could use and hand it to somebody on a resume, but there are lessons in it. And those
sure.
lessons in of themselves wind up being some of the things that help you whittle down that block of wood into what is a useful thing to help you on the backside of it. Again, to your point, if you sit there at 20 years and look back and go, what have I done for the last 20 years? And you try to start looking at it through the lens of history, you're not going to tell it right. Right. There's just
Yeah.
things you're not going to remember, are going to look different going back and whatnot. So there's some great wisdom in that, John. Oh, there's so many places I could go from here. If somebody came to you and they're 2 years in, and let's just say they're doing more than 4, any number bigger than that. And let's just say they're SEALs, right? This is a language that you can speak to. You kind of know what they're going to face, right? Obviously conflicts are different, but you're sitting there and they're having this conversation and they're just asking you for advice of, do I do 10 more years? I have no idea what I want to do on the backside. You've talked about some things here, but like, they can't go take commit. They may not have time to do that book or that journal they got time to journal, but what is some advice you would throw at them? Because what my intended audience are people on the verge of getting out.
Yeah.
And hopefully they got a loved one that'll hear this and send it to them before they sign the papers and go, I'm out in 3 weeks. Hopefully they're at least a year out. A lot of programs have those requirements that you can't be out for 5 years, or you've got to be at least within a year of that departure window.
Right.
So they have a limited amount of time to do some things right then. So maybe the first 9 years have gone by and they're year 10. This is year they think they want to get out. They've not done anything to prepare for that.
Mm.
Make the best use of that time. What is your advice?
Yeah. I would definitely identify where you do have time. A lot of people are going to say, well, I've got a year left. I'm so busy. I don't have enough time to put time, energy, and thought and internal reflection into this, which I call BS on. I think a lot of us have more time than we give ourselves credit for. We spend 5 minutes here doom scrolling, 10 minutes over here watching some YouTube shorts or whatever. Social media it's a double-edged sword, right? We're
Yeah.
both clearly on it, but
Right.
it's a double-edged sword. A lot of benefits, but also a lot of downsides. Use it wisely. I would go use that time wisely. Go on social media to learn from others who are out there or who have gotten out before you. Have those cups of coffee with
Mhm.
people in the different industries that you are interested in getting into. Speak to them about why they got into it, what was required, did they like it? Ask them the hard questions, right? And would they do it again? Ask them those. And then, I think if you identify a particular job or industry that does, in fact, interest you, then do some of that backward planning. Okay, well, I want to get into financial management. Okay, well,
Yeah.
what does that take? Go take some online courses, get some books, read those books, educate yourself, be a lifelong
Right.
learner. Don't wait until the last second to be like, okay, well, yeah, I'm getting out in 3 months. When I get out in 3 months, that's when I'm going to take my first course. No,
Yeah.
you got time to put in some work to set you up for success when you
Yeah.
take that initial step off that off ramp.
Good stuff. Yeah, there's a word that you said it earlier that just freaks people out, especially veterans. I think probably especially men is networking. What you just described is networking. It just doesn't have
Yeah,
that
100%.
connotation. I mean, my brain goes back to like some of these mass interviews, like back in the 80s and 90s. It wasn't uncommon that you'd be in a room with 100 people interviewing for one position,
Wow.
right? And you're all sitting there kind of waiting your turn. And in this smoky lounge kind of a thing, that's really uncomfortable talking, we're kind of all in this boat together kind of feel. But what you described it makes all earthly sense in the world. So take the word networking and throw it out and just say, reach out to people who can give you good wisdom, who can speak from a
Yeah.
voice of experience. It costs you nothing. Maybe you buy them a drink, maybe you buy them a plate of nachos, but man, that's so much cheaper than going and picking something you don't like and waiting 10 years before you figure out, I
Oh my
hate
gosh.
this. I
Yeah,
hate it. Yeah.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
great, man. I don't know how to thank you enough for the time today, but for your service.
No, thanks, brother.
I can't fathom the survivor's guilt and all those things that go with that. I mean, again, I don't know how accurate the movie was. I've seen a lot of interviews of Mark Luttrell and his side of that story. But at the end of the day, you can only do what you can do, and you're in the position you're in. Those were orders to be in those positions. So, but what you do from there on is part of your purpose, man. It's part of you being not a cul-de-sac but a river. That things that come to you learn from them and pass them on. So if it was a mistake, somebody downstream doesn't make it. If it was just a lesson to learn to make him better, if they're in that same place that you've done that. I applaud you, man. I see you out there putting a lot of things out, going on a lot of interviews on a variety of topics. But what I see is somebody who's still pouring everything you got into this country you love. And man, I'm really grateful for what you've done. I'm happy to hear you're grounded in the most important things, and that's family. Real
That's
quick
right,
before we
man.
go,
Yeah.
that stuff behind you, that picture's just
Yeah.
freaking awesome. But if you had to pick one of those items to tell me about, like this
Mm,
really, I know they all mean something terribly different, but what's one of the more important
yeah.
items back there to you?
Yeah, so I would definitely say that painting. I'll tell you, some of the little people back there are some things that I printed on my 3D printer just to remind me
Mhm.
to stay in the moment. Clearly, some of it's from my professional career in the SEAL teams, at different organizations within special operations. That picture back there kind of speaks to what it is that I do now, which for those listening, I'll describe it. It's a painting made by this woman named, she goes by Invader Girl. She was in the military too, and now she does a lot of military paintings. But this one in particular is a special operator sitting in a meditating position. And I think those two things juxtaposed against one another, in most people's minds, they're not something that go together. But if you really peel back the onion, whether it's sitting in that position and meditating or meditating in some other way, some other capacity, it's going to make you a better special operator, but ultimately it's also going to make you a better person. So a buddy of mine, when Invader Girl put that on her website, a buddy of mine sent it to me, and I was like, dang it. Now I have to buy this thing. I
Man,
can't
that's
not buy
awesome.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
So that's what
there's a
that
lot
is.
of art out there. You see it and go, I haven't drank enough to understand what that picture's telling me. But that one is a volume of books behind you, right? I mean, it speaks
Yeah.
to some, and hearing some of your stories, I understand the lessons behind it. But just really give you credit that you've done the homework to try and really be healthy on the backside of service, and then take the lessons you learned to continue to give back to that community, man. Just thank you for what you do. And I appreciate you having time on here today, Jon. I really do.
Yeah, Greg. Thanks for having me, man. Thanks for doing what you're doing for our
My pleasure.
transitioning service members and our veterans.
My
Can't
pleasure,
be
sir.
enough of it.
I hope we
All right, my
find
friend.
ourselves in the same room one of these days, man. Love to shake your hand, but until
That'd be
then, just
great.
thank you, brother. Have a great one,
Of
Jon.
course. You too.
As we wrap up, I just want to say thank you for spending time with me on Serious Talk, the Military Minute. Special thanks to Jon for his service and what he has done and continues to do for the military community. If today's conversation helped you think differently about your military transition, purpose, identity, or the practical steps to prepare, do me a favor, follow or subscribe to the show wherever you listen, and please leave a review. It genuinely helps other service members and military spouses find not just these stories, but these resources that can help them on their journey. And please share this episode with a veteran or a military spouse who's on a similar journey. Sometimes one conversation can change someone's next decision and their next decade. To every veteran and military spouse listening, thank you. Your service, your sacrifice, and what your families carry matter more than most people will ever understand. You'll find links and resources in the show notes based on what we discussed today, recommended programs, next steps, and related content. And a special thank you to Jason Fowler for allowing us to use his song, Mystery Road. If you've got any follow-up questions or want to connect, email us at serioustalk@serioussolutions.com. I'm Greg Banks. Until next time, take care of yourself and please take care of others.